All right, rock and roll. Welcome, one and all, to the Scorched Earth Political Podcast. I'm your host, John. We welcome all, friend and foe, sinner and saint. And if you could kindly hit that like and subscribe button. Seems like we're getting new people every day, which is always encouraging, and we always appreciate it. And if you want to feel a little risque, leave some comments. Seems like I've had quite a few battles with the trolls, and I absolutely cherish them. It is a nice little thing. And for all those who are new, for all those who keep coming back kindly, this is where we try and do a little more unabridged, a little more honest and raw and brutal look at big stories in the news every day. I think that legacy media is corrupted because of the money influence. Me being poor, I'm immune to that, which is really a nice thing. All right, so we're off and running. We're taking no prisoners, telling no lies, and we're going to start by burning it all down. And I try and listen to all the ecosystems that are out there. And I was listening to this right-wing podcast, and they were talking about trans women in sports and how dominant they would be against the women and blah, 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 which, absolutely is not true, but, whatever. And I kind of started to think about this whole argument that these trans women are so superior. I guess my question, and to start the podcast out tonight, is why can't they be in the army? Why did Pig Hegseth basically ban all transgender people from the army? If they're so superior to women, which I'm not buying, but let's say that what that argument is on one side of the geopolitical right, why can't they be in the army? Wouldn't you want somebody who is physically superior to women to be in there? Because they're not banning women. They're letting women go into fields of combat, into active combat situations. Why can't the transgender be there? Explain that to me. Leave it in the comments if you actually have an answer. I don't know. I don't know who's Republican and who's not. All right, let's go down and let's start with our first story of the day. Happy Taco Tuesday to everybody too. And seems like Disney is paying the blackmailer again. What are you talking about, John? Let us go back in the time capsule to a more gentle era, a more bygone era where civility reigned supreme. Yes? Was that 100 years ago, John? No, it was last March 10th when Joe Biden was still president. Oh, wow. When there was a moral and ethical human being in the White House. Seems like 100 years ago now, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. And it grows farther by the day. Well, last March 10th, George Stephanopoulos, who is the host of This Week on ABC, was interviewing Nancy Mace, who is just a dumpster diver of anybody, of a human being. And he said in his interview with her that Donald Trump was found liable for rape in his trial with E. Jean Carroll. Okay? Now, actually, he was found guilty of sexual assault. Now, I know most people out there are going to say, what is the effing difference? Well, there's obviously a big difference to Donnie because he decided to sue ABC. Now, I'm sure none of that had to do with the fact that he owed, as a result of that trial and the subsequent defamation trial, $88 million to Miss E. Jean Carroll. Okay? That he sexually assaulted, which was adjudicated by a jury of his peers. Well, not actually his peers, because I think everybody in the jury box had a hardened soul, so they're not exactly Donald Trump's peers. But, of course, he is appealing that, which he appeals all the cases he loses, but good luck with that. Now, he was angry, so he sued ABC News. Let's fast forward. No, let's not fast forward. Let's talk about the lawsuit. So most legal experts said he didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of getting this lawsuit through. The reason was because to be sued for defamation, which is what he was doing, you have to show malice. And I will say this, if you really ever want to see a great movie about what that is, defamation, malice, absolutely. Watch the classic Paul Newman, Sally Field movie, Absence of Malice. Brilliant on brilliant on brilliant. But I digress. So most legal experts said Trump didn't have a snowball's chance because ABC didn't knowingly and maliciously try to impugn his character. Like there's character in that guy. Right. I think that ended up on the floor at the Berghoff department store in New York after he sexually assaulted Miss E. Jean Carroll. But, okay, Donald Trump kept up with the lawsuit, kept it in the courts because he sues everything. And, well, lo and behold, he became president in November. Well, December, Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, decided, well, we better settle with this clown. You know, we have a lot of different media outlets. We need access to the White House. We need access to the government. And we know how vengeant and petty Trump can be. But also, one thing we know is when he gets you down once and you capitulate, you kiss the ring, he'll come back around. He's not satisfied with just one, right? All right, fair enough. So Bob Iger agreed to give $15 million and an apology to Donald Trump's presidential library, which there is no plans. I think it's actually a porta potty in the middle of Bakersfield, and that would be an appropriate throne for that king. So, okay, they give him $15 million, kiss on the cheek. Okay, everything's good. Well, this is something you're not going to hear in the mainstream media, right? That's why you got to come back to scorched earth. Is in the subsequent months, Trump has went on NBC's Meet the Press. The Sunday shows are the big ones. Those are the marquee shows. He went on twice with Kristen Welker. He has not at all went on CBS or ABC. Now, currently he is suing CBS for a segment they did with him and Kamala Harris, and he said that they misappropriated the editing, blah, blah, blah. CBS has actually got some backbone. They're actually trying to stand up to it. And ABC, they're kind of left out in the lurch. Well, I have a funny feeling that these things aren't all going to be coincidental that I'm going to start lining up here. Well, last week, Bob Iger in his quarterly earnings report told investors that Hulu was going to add Newsmax to their streaming lineup. Now, unfortunately, we probably all know what Newsmax is, but it is a very far right-wing, Trump-loving media outlet. They are, you know, if we're going to look at the right-wing ecosystem as Arkham Asylum, that's the prison in Batman. That's where you house the Joker, Bane, the Riddler, Penguin, all the crazy people, right? In that jail, Newsmax would be the one in solitary. Fox would actually be in general population. Okay? They're saner than them. Actually, they're still cowing about the 2020 election over there on Newsmax, and Cimitech is coming to get them, get another $1 billion. They got $1 billion from Fox for their lies. Might as well get $1 billion from Newsmax. We'll see how that all works out. But now they're going to add Newsmax. Wow, how nice is that? Now you're probably saying, God, John, what kind of viewership does Newsmax have? And I would say, wow, I have the best audience in the world. You're asking very, very intelligent questions, right? Now, Newsmax, by being part of Hulu, will have exposure to 60 million homes. Okay? Now, let's go to the numbers. Last week, that's what I do for you. I do some research. I'm not a pretty face. I'm more than a pretty face, okay? You look at me, you say, hey, what's Brad Pitt's double doing on this podcast? Well, I'm not, okay? Not. Feel good right now. Go see F1 this summer. Brad Pitt's incredible in that. The audience last week was 319,000 for the entire week. I had to double check it because those numbers are so pathetically low that I was like, how can, in a country of 340 million people, that's all they got? Well, let's talk about the Nielsen numbers. So last week, for one show, viewership for one show, the Playboy Murders, I didn't even know that was a show, was number 231 in the Nielsen ratings. Okay? It had 320,000 viewers for one show. I'm assuming it was an hour. I don't know. I don't care. Newsmax had 319,000 for the entire week. And somehow Disney wanted to add them to Hulu. Hey, this just in, Disney, you can add me to your streaming service. Me and super producer Stacy, we're on. We're going. Get the car. Let's gas it up. We're heading to Hulu land, Stacy. We're heading to Hulu land. I mean, really? That's happening? I'm sure this wasn't some type of extortion payment so that they can get more access to the president for their Sunday shows and assorted other media, right? You know, before we know it, Mickey Mouse is going to have a Trump 2028 hat on. Yeah. That's why you don't need mainstream media, because they all kiss the ring. They're all collaborators with this despot. Make no mistake about it. Some a little less than others, but they're all kissing the effing ring. Yeah. All right. Now, our little second story is, I'm telling you, you're going to get stories here you're not going to get anywhere else. I don't know if you caught that brilliantly riveting segment I did the other day on the wealth gap in America. And it absolutely is something. We're getting poor. You know, the bottom 85, the bottom 90%, the gap is just growing with the top 10%, right? It is. It's just insane. The numbers were astronomical. I think the numbers were, if I can correctly remember them, was the top 10% controlled $460 trillion, and the bottom 50% only had $4 trillion. I mean, it's just astronomical, okay? Fine. Let the revolution happen another day. But we also find out in a study in Nature Climate Change by renowned scientists that we have a new culprit in the global warming trend. Do you want to guess who it is? Seems like in that study, they discovered that the richest 10% of the world's population are responsible for 67% of the observable climate warming since 1990. Listen to that again. The top 10% of the population of the world is responsible basically for 67% of the global warming that has occurred since 1990. Wow. And I always thought it was me leaving my Dyson on too long in my bedroom. Ha! John, we forgive you. Okay? Now pay your electric bill, you dumb son of a gun. All right. Findings from the study. The top 1% of population contribute 20 times as much to climate disasters as the bottom 99%. Listen to that again. The top 1% of the population in the world contribute 20 times as much to climate disasters as the bottom 99%. Yeah. Since 2019, the 10% are responsible for 50% of global emissions, whereas the bottom 50% contribute only 10% of global emissions. You know, the study scientist Carl Friedrich Schlesinger, don't ask me to say that twice, said if everyone emitted like the bottom 50% of the world's population, the world would have seen minimal global warming since 1990. The oceans have risen 4.25 inches since 1990. Yeah, it's coming. I'm telling you, head to Nevada if you want beachfront property. It's coming, right? The study then found that in America, the bottom 85%, in terms of wealth, They own no factories, private jets, oil rigs, blah, 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 blah. Hardly register on the carbon emissions meter versus the top 15%. So, they're pushing it. And look, I am eco-friendly. If we can be kinder to Mother Earth, I agree. Let's do it. But it's all the son of a bitches at the top, right? With, they own these polluting factories. They own coal mines. They own stuff like that. That's what oil rigs. Go through Texas. Tell me how many effing oil rigs there is there. And what are they doing to destroy Mother Earth? These Republicans, they just seem to think we're going to loot and plunder Mother Earth. And that's what they're doing. They're stuffing their pockets full of money. But you know what? Mother Earth is coming back. Mother Earth's going, F you. And look, I want to come up with an answer. They think it's like a budget. We're going to go to the 11th hour and we're just going to come up with some answer. Mother Earth's not going to do that. I have a really great friend, Bill. He's on the other side of the political aisle. And he says, look, Johnny, this has happened 4 or 5 times in the history of the world. And he is absolutely correct. Of course, every time it has happened, there's been a mass extinction event. Yeah, animals and humans. Okay. And like I've talked before on this podcast, why do you think Trump wants Canada? Why do you think he wants Greenland? Really? Strategic? No. It's because that's where we're going to be living in the next 30 years. America's burning up. We've talked about that Phoenix had 90 straight days last summer of over 110 degrees. We are burning up. I can't even imagine what it's like in Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua. Maybe we ought to let Trump spend a little time there, right? All right, let's get on to our next story. Seems like after we found out, Don the Grifter was going to take a plane, $450 million plane from Qatar. Several Republican senators don't seem too happy. They actually think that crosses the line. Wow. Nice to hear from you guys. Been a long time. Thought you lost your vocal cords. Senator Shelley Moore, a member of the GOP membership, said that the president and the White House need to look at the constitutionality of this issue. Is there some way you could just come out and say it's a bribe? I mean, isn't that what we're doing? Josh Hawley, who isn't exactly a fan of the left, of Missouri, argued that it would be better if Air Force One were a big, beautiful jet made in the United States of America by Americans. Yeah, we got that too. That'd be kind of nice. I thought we were trying to bring things back, Mr. President, not get them from Qatar. The wealthiest country in the world, we're getting a plane, huh? Oh, that you're going to get when you leave office. I am not a fan of Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi, who took $140,000 a year salaries and parlayed it into wealth worth $20 to $30 million. Okay, I'm gonna call crooks on both sides of the aisle, but Trump ain't messing around. He isn't doing the million thing. He's doing it with the billions. He is not messing. His crypto scam that he's running right now is just egregious. And nobody in the Republican Party is even saying a goddamn word about it, right? Go ahead. Go ahead, start your own crypto coin. I mean, the numbers are just mind-boggling, the fraud. I was seeing something today, and I really didn't want to do it because I wanted to throw up in my own lap, about the Melanie meme coin. And the day before it was announced that it was going to be her meme coin in the crypto universe, there was 24 trades. One of them, they were all anonymous, because that's the big thing about crypto. It's all anonymous. One put $600,000 in, and the day they announced it, it became worth $39 million. They cashed out the next day. These insiders, these 24 people on the Melanie crypto scam, made $800 million that first day. The public lost $2.1 billion. There's people, average people, thinking, oh, I'm going to get the president's meme coin. It's going to go up. Yeah. If you're not the first one in and you know the thing, as soon as they got it, they started unloading it. They knew what was coming. It's literally a pyramid scam. My little brother, he believes in crypto, man. That's cool. I'm not going to tell the new generation, but let me ask you this. What is it? What is that stuff? Don't tell me it's just because there's a limited number. Hey, this just in. I got a limited number of yellow pens. Let's start the bidding. Keep selling it. Keep selling. Actually, this thing here is worth more than crypto. There's actually something tangible. There's an asset here. It ain't like that bullshit. Okay, you can tell me Bitcoin's something. Okay, more power to you, man. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to get into it. Also, Senator John Kennedy, who's actually a doctor who voted for Robert Kennedy. Explain that to me. Said he needs to research whether it will pass legal muster. We ought to follow the law, he said. Wow, wouldn't that be nice? Trump Sunday night said that the Defense Department plans to accept the luxury jet as a gift, free of charge. You know, nothing's free. Qatar isn't giving him a $450 million jet out of the generosity of their heart. Everything is transactional. You give that guy something, you want something in return. Oh, maybe tariffs being eliminated. Maybe, defense contracts. Who knows what it is? But there's something. Don Jr. and Eric, those two effing idiots, they're out there scamming everything they can. They know they got 3.5 years to just keep pumping it into their little ecosystem, right? Ethical experts have raised concerns about the potential move and question whether accepting the plane would violate the Constitution's emoluments clause. That basically is where a president is prohibited from receiving an emolument or profit from any king, prince, or foreign state, unless Congress consents. Why did they, in the emoluments clause in the Constitution, why don't they just put Trump's name at the end of that thing? Trump will not be able to accept anything from a king, queen, or anybody else. Well, it seems like right-wing media, who literally are the biggest sheep in the world, the lowest of the low, well, even they are appalled at the grift that's going on. Seems like Ben Shapiro is one of the right-wing guys, says, I think if we switch the names to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, we'd all be freaking out on this plane thing right now. Yeah, we would. I think even the Democrats would be like, no, we're not doing this. But then again, Joe had a conscience. Joe had a soul, and Joe didn't want to sell out America. Shapiro also linked the potential Qatari deal. Deal? They're just giving us something. I don't understand what the deal is here. They're giving him a bribe. With others, reports of influence peddling, like Trump's cryptocurrency sweepstakes, and we've explained that. You buy the Trump coin, 75% of it, of the funds, don't go towards the coin. They go towards administrative fees. Yeah, how do you think Don Jr. affords all that cocaine? Really. They sent Kimberly Guilfoyle, who literally is the perfect match for that idiot. Those two idiots, if they produced, that would be a subspecies, okay? They sent her, I think, over to Greece to be the ambassador. The poor Greeks. They got to talk to that bimbo every day. Oh, my God. You know what? I am not a Gavin Newsom fan, but him divorcing her actually says that guy does have a modicum of intelligence, all right? Shapiro continued saying, President Trump promised to drain the swamp. This is not, in fact, draining the swamp. No kidding, Ben. Welcome to the world. What's it like to see sunlight when you pulled your head out of your ass? Jesus Christ. All right, let's get to our final story of the day. The House Republicans yesterday proposed $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Didn't see that coming. To help fund Trump's $4.5 trillion tax plan. The bill would eliminate coverage for at least 9 million people, according to the CBO, with $715 billion of the savings coming from changes to federal health programs. If you're a federal worker, they're going to change your coverage. Let's get that out of the way right now. It imposes work requirements for people receiving Medicaid. That's going to work out great. and twice yearly eligibility checks, and the bonus, a $35 copay for the lowest income people on Medicaid. Currently, their copay is zero. What I was able to research, the copay is zero if you make under $18,000 a year. It could be 13, it could be 18. It depends on your state, whatever that is, right? It also shortens the ACA enrollment windows, restricts coverage renewals, and blocks Medicare funds for, wait for it, Planned Parenthood. Okay. Trump previously vowed not to cut Medicaid, but the bill does just the opposite of it. Where did you think the money was going to come from? You think we're going to find change in the cushions? Hey, I got an idea. Why don't we just cut a percentage of the Trump crypto coin? Or maybe Qatar can donate $1 trillion and take care of that coverage. Why not? Look, if you're going to do a bribe, at least do it so you help people out. Medicaid's a good program and it helps good people. Yeah. Is there some waste in there? Probably. Go ahead. Let's get to it. That's fine. But you are going to be cutting the most vulnerable people in America. And as far as I'm concerned, a nation defines itself by how it treats the lowest of its citizens. Or forget citizens, just people. Jesus didn't care if you were a citizen of the United States. He treated everybody equally. Let's care for everybody. All right. That's it for Scorched Earth for today. I just want to tell you I love y'all. We're in this together. And we're going to win. Because we're on the side of right. We're on the side of good. And we are fighting for democracy. All right. I love y'all. You'll go out there and be good, you little rascals. And I'll see you soon on the Scorched Earth.